The Competitive Edge, number 18, with Wiley Cerilli. Welcome to The Competitive Edge. My name is Scott Britton, and I'm here to help you answer a question that we all have. How can I get an edge in my business and life? Each week, we're going to uncover how some of the most successful and inspiring entrepreneurs, entertainers, and thought leaders get an edge, so you too can reach your full potential. Thanks for tuning in today. Now let's get started. What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Competitive Edge. Today is something I've been looking forward to for a long time. My guest is Wiley Cerilli, the CEO of my last company, SinglePlatform. Wiley has been a mentor, friend, and inspiration to me, and today he has some awesome things that he's going to share with you. I first met Wiley when he was running SinglePlatform out of basically a closet in the financial district in New York City. A friend of mine told me I had to meet him because he was so awesome. And at this time, I was kind of in that mode where I was working on my first company and I was calling myself a founder, and I wasn't actually doing anything. I was just taking a lot of meetings with people and telling them about my idea. So when somebody suggested that Wiley was a cool dude I had to meet, I was like, sure, yeah, whatever. So I went down to SinglePlatform's closet of a headquarters and remember leaving the meeting thinking, man, that dude's got the it factor and he's going to be successful. And little did I know that in less than a year, I was going to be joining his company and learning from the absolute best mentors anybody could ever ask for in their lives. Well, it's been almost 3 years since we first met, and I'm sure glad we did. He's an amazing guy and one of these rare people who's incredibly humble despite how talented he is. Today, Wiley is going to teach you the mindsets he took in the early days when first selling SinglePlatform to his initial customers. And guess what? He was doing it before he even had a product. This sales first mindset is very different than what I see a lot of entrepreneurs do. And I think it's a big reason why we were so successful and able to eventually sell the company for $100 million. I thought I knew a lot about sales, people, and selling a vision before this episode. But after our conversation, there was a ton of things that I learned today, which was really, really amazing. So we're going to talk about these, and we're also going to touch on things that CEOs should be focusing on in the early stages of the companies, and finish up with some pretty inspiring stories that I don't know if Wiley's told a lot of people, like the time that he biked 100 miles a day for a month to raise money for charity as a 19-year-old kid. So if you like meaty stories, startup tactics, and inspiration, you're going to love this conversation with one of my mentors, Wiley Cerilli. Wiley, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm awesome, buddy. Really, really great.
Dude, I'm so excited to have you here, especially on the heels of a conversation about Kenny taking cars for joyrides across the country. And for everybody who doesn't know, Kenny is a colleague, one of my mentors, who me and Wiley worked with at SinglePlatform. And today, man, I thought we could really talk a lot about sales and how you've taken a sales first approach in the companies that you've built and been a part of. And I think this is really important because I just see a lot of people out there trying to build technology and building things that people don't necessarily want. And the way that you've gone about building some of your companies, in particular, SinglePlatform, has been really insightful for me as I go out and think about how to do this. So can you talk a little bit about when you decided to go and start SinglePlatform and how you approached getting the company off the ground?
Yeah, sure. So basically, where a lot of the ideas for SinglePlatform came from was me going out with I had an overarching concept that I liked, but I didn't know if it could work. I didn't know if local businesses would buy it. And so what I did was I put together a deck, like a PowerPoint deck, and made it actually out of Microsoft Paint with sort of I envisioned the product looking like. And I went out and cold called, not to people I knew. I specifically wanted to talk to restaurants and bars who I didn't know, because I really wanted to get an idea of what our sales metrics would look like down the line. So anyway, so I took a deck of what the idea may look like, went out, made cold calls, and met with local businesses. And I'd say out of the first 30 meetings, 27 of them said no. And and would be disinterested, right when I got to slide number 2. And so after every meeting, if I could even get through those slides, I would then go back and adjust the decks. Because the reason why I wanted to do it in person is I wanted to see, you can tell when someone's interested just because all of a sudden they're making eye contact, or they sit up, or their tone changes. And so I wanted to get that firsthand feedback. So whenever I saw someone react to a certain buzzword that I used or a slide that I put up, I then rearranged the deck. And then would go out and try to sell the product again the next day with an updated deck.
Wow. And real quick, I'm curious. I mean, how did you get 30 people to commit to a meeting with you via cold call?
Yeah. So, I used a lot of different scripts. For the most part, when you're first starting off and trying to actually get meetings, I didn't try a lot of things in the beginning. I'd like to try something for at least 3 to 4 days to get enough data. So I would call, and for 3-4 days, I would use A script. And then for the next 3-4 days, I would use B script. Because the challenge is if you're calling and every single time you're like, oh, maybe I'll try this, maybe I'll try that, maybe I'll try that. You don't know if you just got lucky with someone who is just more open to meeting, or maybe you're more confident about this and that's why it worked. So whenever I tried to make a change to the script, I tried to do it over a 4-day period, to calling and getting meetings. So I call and say, hi, I work for a company called SinglePlatform, and I'd like to talk with you about a way to manage your website and mobile site and Facebook all in one. And that did not work out because nobody really cared about SinglePlatform and meetings. And so I tried to play with the social aspect of it. I tried to play with the website aspect of it. And then eventually got to the point where I would test using different publisher names to see if I could get a meeting that way. So I would call and say, hi, I manage a program for A and B website, and I'd like to talk to you about adding your menu to their website. And then when I got into the meeting, I would talk about how the product could do that. But the other benefits were that we could also, when you update your content in single platform, it also update your website and mobile site in Facebook and Twitter. So that was probably, I don't know what iteration of the pitch that was, or the call intro that was, but it certainly wasn't the first one. So basically I went out and I would try to sell the idea, and I would get all the way to the point, some people are like, whoa, why would you, it sounds a little weird that you would actually go out and sell a product that doesn't exist and accept money for it. But I didn't accept money, mainly because people wouldn't give me money. But the other was, I wanted to get to the point where they would actually take out their checkbook or a credit card and say, I'm willing to pay for this. And then at that point, I'd let them know that this product was launching in 3 to 4 months. I'd circle back when it was ready. And the reason why is because I didn't want to quit my job and ask other people to quit their jobs and raise a round of funding if I didn't know that people would actually buy a product. And I hear a lot of entrepreneurs that have an idea for a concept say, well, and they're already in the process of building this thing, or it's already launched. And they say, well, I met with, 20 businesses and they said that they would do it once it's live. And the reason why I don't like that is because I feel like they might just be, saying no to someone when they're sitting right in front of you is an uncomfortable thing. So there's an excuse for the local business owner or whoever it is you're trying to sell to, that they have if the product's not live to say, oh, I like that. So for instance, even when I'm, throwing an idea out to a friend of mine, an idea that I'm having for a company to a friend of mine, I won't say I have this idea. What I'll say is, oh, my friend has this idea for an app that does blah, 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 whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And then honest feedback, because my friends don't want to say that's a shitty idea, Wiley. Right. So
it's like nobody's ever going to tell you that they hate your shirt, like, because they're your friends.
Yeah, I like that shirt. Yeah, what's that movie? A Field of Dreams, right? Like, if you build it, they will come, kind of thing. I don't like the idea of pouring all this time and money into something if I don't believe that they're going to sell it. Like, if you buy it, then I'll build it, kind of thing. So that's how I really started SinglePlatform. And after 3 months of doing that, I got to a point where, a business a day would be willing to check out their checkbook and their credit card and say, I want to pay for this. And that's actually, then when I went back to all those businesses that said yes, took that money and used it as a down payment for a production company to build the initial product, which was $25,000.
Well, I mean, talk about de-risking your startup. So with these businesses, when they committed and they said, yes, like, this is something that I want, would you just say, say, okay, I'll be back in 3 months? Or would you take like a check from them and say, I'll pay you this back? Or what was like logistically what did the pre-sale look like logistically?
Yeah. So what I did with people was I would get a check from them. Most of them were writing checks. And I would say, okay, I'm going to take this check. And they knew that the product wasn't live yet. And I said it's going to launch in whatever it was. It was like 2 to 3 months. And I said I would cash it upon once it goes live, and I email you out your login and password. And then I actually paid the firm up with my money out of my account, but I knew that the safety net was there of these businesses. But I also knew that if this thing didn't launch for like 6 months, I didn't want to take their money, and then all of a sudden we get in this huge, argument over, well, you said it was going to be 3 months and yada yada. So I just told them that if it's not live in 3 months, then I would give them their money back. So that worked out really well. And I also built in with the company that I outsourced the technology. It was actually, they agreed to do it for $25,000 up front, and then another $25,000 once it went live. But that was contingent upon it going live in 3 months. They did not meet that deadline. It was actually just over the deadline. And I reached out to the business and said, okay, fine. We're a little bit behind schedule, as every company is. And they were all fine launching it still. So.
That's a really cool story. One of the things you mentioned that I think is really interesting is some of the things that you look for when you're doing a sales pitch. And you mentioned the eye contact. You mentioned people sitting up in their chair. I would love, man, to just get inside your head for a second when you go down to pitch somebody, because you're one of the best salespeople that I've ever been around in my life. And I mean, let's first talk about, like, before you go into a meeting, what are the types of things that you're thinking about and the mindsets that you take when you're about to go and pitch a product that maybe you've never pitched before?
So there's this test. And Scott, we took this test when you worked at SinglePlatform. It was the controller, stabilizer, analyzer, persuader. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and usually people have one dominant one. So your persuaders are usually more like salespeople. They like to celebrate. The stabilizers look for harmony. The analyzers are looking for data, and the controllers just want to get from A to Z as quickly as possible. They just want to know the solution and get there. And they're good at doing that. So all of them have their strengths and weaknesses and everything. But one thing I think, regardless of whatever I'm trying to sell, is that I keep in mind is trying to find out ways to identify which one is their most dominant, personality trait. Because let's say you go in and you're meeting with an analyzer, right? Well, an analyzer doesn't want to be sold, right? You don't want to use a lot of adjectives. You don't want to, promise them the world. What they want is they want data, right? They want to see what's been, like who's used it, the exact results, that kind of thing, like ROI. They want to talk numbers and data. And so, the stabilizer is more around harmony. So you want to go in there, you want to establish more of a relationship with them. You're asking more personal questions just to get the meeting going. You want that connection, whereas controllers don't want to establish a connection. They just want to know, like, why you're here. Let's get through it. Let's work this thing through quickly. So I can make my decision, and they're quick to make decisions. So that's one of the things I keep in mind is just, what kind of is ways to identify the type of personality that you're dealing with.
I've never asked you this, but have you ever studied NLP or neuro?
No.
So it's actually a concept, like the concept that you're talking about now. And for those people that don't know what NLP is, it stands for neuro-linguistic programming. And it's essentially like,
word, so I I'm not smart enough.
It took me a while to figure it out as well. But what it is, the ways that we can persuade people using our words. It's almost like verbal copywriting, so that they take the actions that we want. And one of the key concepts is calibrating, with the personality type of the people that you're presenting to, because people are going to respond to differently. So it's really cool to hear that you are basically using this, sophisticated NLP, what Tony Robbins calls a technology, without even really knowing it. And I'm curious, like, are there any types of like, how would you figure out early on in interaction what type of person somebody was?
Yeah. So, and by the way, I think it applies not only to just types of questions you're asking, but the way that you sit, the way that your tempo of your pitch and the different parts of the tempo, when to speed up and when to slow down, that it all sort of plays into it. When you take breaks and what you're saying is so much emphasis in it. Anyways, so how you identify with it? There's just some natural just questions up front. So if you're meeting with someone on a Monday or Tuesday, you ask them about the weekend. The controller's not going to want to talk about it. The persuader will go right into it. You can see how if someone's going to engage you more on the personal side. Kenny's a master at that, right? He goes in and he can identify very quickly if someone wants to talk more about, their personal life, and he asks those questions. So I think asking some personal questions up front, you can tell whether someone wants to talk about those things, and then engage them further. Like a persuader will talk about how they went out last night and blah, blah, blah. And then you're echoing and mimicking their personality. So, and then you can ask them a lot of questions. Lee Zucker at SinglePlatform has done an awesome job with, the enterprise sale, which is like a longer sales cycle. And it's asking a lot of questions about like what they're looking for, what their goals are. And so analyzers will use more numbers, and controllers won't talk about they won't talk about what they're trying to hit like this week. They're going to talk about their overarching vision, and the stabilizer might talk about the people on their team. And so we ask them about problems that they're having and challenges they're having. And it's just, I think once you are aware of it, I try to remind myself before I go to a meeting every time, because it's so easy to forget. But if you get in the habit of reminding yourself before you go into a meeting, there's just, red, green, yellow flags all over the place when you start to meet with someone. You'll start to see it a lot more. So,
yeah, I thought I'd share real quick another tip that I learned recently that makes so much sense, but I never did this. So when you're in a first meeting and somebody says like, okay, so tell me about your company or whatever it is, a great question that you can ask is, well, what would you like to know? And then that basically prompts that person to give you exactly like what they're interested in, whether it's like metrics or, whether one that they figure out what your favorite places are to go out in New York City or whatever it is. And you can kind of pull out exactly what you want from that person and then calibrate the way that you pitch them.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's a great idea.
So dude, I'm also interested personally to know about this. So a lot of people, they had $25,000 in revenue, more or less. A lot of people would have said, great, awesome. I have a software as a service product. I have money in the bank. Like, I'm just going to go ahead and bootstrap this until it gives me the lifestyle that I want or whatever. But you decided to go out and raise institutional capital. Can you tell me a little bit about your thought process behind that decision?
Yeah. So I guess, I love building things, and things can be, I feel like it's a cheesy thing to say, but I love whether it's technology or, teams, or like nonprofit organizations. I love building, and I like trying to solve, now that I've been out of school for, 15 years now, I like to try to solve problems I like to try to solve bigger and bigger problems each time I go out to try to solve a problem. And so what I was trying to learn throughout that process was, is this a problem that not just, restaurants have, but bars have, and spas have, and salons have, and florists have? Because the last business that we had, Seamless Web, certainly solved a lot of problems for consumers, ordering food, and then also for restaurants as well. But I wanted a product that was going to go beyond that. And I felt like I could bootstrap it, but if the end goal is to help empower hundreds of thousands, if not millions of businesses, I'm not going to get there. I may eventually get there by myself, but very likely not. And when you do an institutional round of funding, there are obviously pluses and minuses to it. But one of the big pluses is that it's a steroid. You're gonna it's going to enable you to bring on all these other people that can actually do the things that you want to do. You know, I think I'm a unique CEO in the sense that, I'm not very smart, and I can't do a lot of things that most people could do. Like, Scott, you're super smart. I think you could walk into most companies and take over most jobs and do a great job. You know, your thirst for learning and wanting to grow, and the way that you can take in all this information, process it, and have an intelligent conversation about it. Like the idea of having a podcast with all these people from different industries, to me, is frightening. Like, I'm not that smart. So there's an advantage to being really smart and a disadvantage. For me, a disadvantage is I can't do all these things, right? I can't, you know, I'm learning disabled, and I'm not good with numbers. I'm not good with reading, really not good with reading beyond, you know, a few sentences. Like, just, you know, reading comprehension is difficult. So you may look at that and say that's a disadvantage, but the advantage to that is, I had to, at a very young age, learn how to, identify, talent, you know, like meet with you. And I'll never forget our meeting and thinking, whoa, this guy can do a lot of great things, you know, and I can say that sentence about a lot of the folks at SinglePlatform, whether it's Adam or Kenny or Lee, and the whole team is just incredible. So I think that the advantage of not being very smart is that I get to be able to identify talent and then empower them. And so I learned that at a very young age, dropping out of college when I was 19, that I couldn't do these things. And therefore I need to be able to identify the talent and then empower people. You know, like, what's that quote? If you want to sail the sea, you don't gather a bunch of men and tell them to build you a boat. You teach them to yearn to sail the sea, and they will build you that boat. So I think I know how powerful, it can be when you find great people and allow them to build ships and sail across seas. And I think that with institutional fundraising, you know, going back to your question, raising money enables you to bring on resources like a Kenny and an Adam and a Pete and a Stephanie and a Lee and a you and you know, make that dream come true. So a big part of, you know, making that dream come true was raising that round of funding and bringing on those, you know, kick-ass people early on to make the thing happen.
Dude, well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm blushing big time here. So good thing this is audio only. But you know, I think actually, I actually kind of want to dig into this, because I think, like, when I think about your strengths, and you do have a ton of them, you're definitely really smart and you're selling yourself short. But I love the humbleness, is that you can really get the best out of people, man. Like, I remember being at SinglePlatform, and every time that we would meet, me just like thinking so hard about how I wanted to please you, and that I wanted to do an amazing job, and I wanted to leave that meeting feeling like you were pumped about my work. And I know that I'm not the only person that feels that way. And I think you have this magical way of getting out the best out of people, yet while maintaining your grace and likability. And, you know, I'd be curious to kind of know, like, how you think about that.
I think I am. So Brad Felds, right? Brad Felds, proven entrepreneur and an investor. He said, I think it's a complete fallacy that a CEO and a leader can motivate people, right? He said, but what they can do is provide an environment where motivated people can excel, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that I don't motivate you. Like, the motivation comes from within you, right? You always had that in you, and Kenny always had that in him, and all these people had them in him. Now, it's unique to find people like you and Kenny, and everyone has varying degrees of it. So I don't think I motivate you. I don't think I make you work harder. I think I just helped enable an environment that where you can take the reins and run full speed. And therefore you get this like high off of it, which is awesome because you're doing what you should be doing. You have all this responsibility, and I think it's rare for younger people. But that letting go aspect is honestly one of the hardest things to do as a CEO is to let go. And I see a lot of CEOs and they talk a lot about that. They don't want to give up. And for me, I can't not give up because I know the results that you can get when you empower people. So
we talked a little bit about, I guess, like your ability to get the most out of people. And it sounds like a lot of this actually has to do with the function of the CEO, and what really makes good CEO. So I'm curious, like, what do you think the most important things, that a CEO should be focused on are?
So yeah, I think a lot of it goes back to what stage of the business that I think I'm a good CEO for the first two stages of a business, which is like the testing phase and the tuning phase. Going into scale, but not the scale phase. Like the test phase is like when you're a family, I used to talk about that all the time, like a family, 2 to 5 people, and everyone's wearing all the different hats, and you're in it for, you're so passionate about the vision of the business, but you're testing to see, is there a business there? And I'd say we were in that phase for, I don't know, a year and a half, the first year and a half. And then you go into the tune phase, right? And the tune phase is like, okay, we know what our model is, and now we need to tune this thing and get it ready so that we can scale it out. And so I think it takes a little bit of a different skill set when you get to that phase of the business. People start to specialize in these little families. You may have a sales team, you have an account management team, but small team, but let's call it, 10 people to 50 to 70 or so. My favorite time, cause you're not so scared about this not being a business. You think you've found your model, and you should add some more strategic people in, and you came in right around that time, which was awesome. And you were still more in the test phase, actually. And then we started moving into the tune phase. And the next phase is like really scaling it out. It's when you have directors of, you're bringing in a very senior HR person and a head of finance, and, you go beyond 70, maybe to 100 people up, and maybe everyone doesn't know each other's names, and people aren't there necessarily just for the vision, but they're there partially because they want a job at kind of a cool company. And it becomes more of a job as opposed to like, this thing that's just like burning inside you and inside the whole organization and everything. So I think it takes a long story, but I think it takes different, things at different phases of the business. And so I think for the first phase of the business, being able to, sell people on a vision, just an open vision, is super important. And I'd say one of the reasons why that is so important is because you don't have anything, right? You need to be able to help influence people, to buy into your idea. That's investors, that's angel investors, but that's most importantly the team, right? So you need to be able to recruit good people to make things happen, because those initial people are the most important people, because they're going to be the ones that make this thing happen or not. And so I think a lot of it goes back to being able to sell and get people excited about an idea.
Is there any particular things that you would focus on when you're trying to sell the vision?
In particular things,
like quantifying the size of the opportunity, or like how much fun this is going to be working together, or why this is such an important problem that we need to solve. I mean, I'm constantly thinking about how I can captivate people in conversation, and I'm curious to hear what you think.
I think in general, I like not trying to use the word I, and instead telling stories of other people's problems and why. And I did this all the time in board meetings too, or when we were trying to sell the business. Instead of saying, this is what I like most about the business, what we like most about the business, it was saying, this is what, Howard at First Round Capital loved about this business. This is what, this person was blown away by. This is what this business, Ken at Blockheads loved, because his problem at Blockheads was A, B, and C. So it's storytelling is just so important, because when you can tell a story and it's not, people don't feel like you're selling them as much, but they get to, enjoy this little ride that you're taking them on, as opposed to like, let me tell you why I think that this is such a huge opportunity. It's more of a, here's what other people think and other people's problems are. And if you can do that in an eloquent way, you can really get a lot of people to buy in.
Yeah, that's also great. I mean, that's a tactic that I would use all the time that I learned from you guys. It's basically a non-obnoxious way to show social proof. Instead of people's like, so who do you like, why is this awesome or whatever? I could say like, well, we work with Google, and I would come off like a tool, and the people would probably hate me. But if I say how I phrase it, and again, this is something that you just alluded to and I learned from you guys is, well, one of the things that XYZ big player loved about us is the fact that, we do this thing. And it's just like a much more endearing way to phrase something.
It's funny, man, because I remember being in our old office, and there was like nobody there, single digit people. And I remember having that exact conversation. I remember the desk I was sitting at with Kenny, and we were writing the publisher pitch. And I remember saying that to him, like where we would say, oh, this is what Google loves about this. This is what blah, blah, blah loves about this. And it's great to hear that in a lasting effect, because I really do think it's important.
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, like, that's not just in business stuff. Like, that's life, man. Like, that's what, in communicating with your peers, I feel like there's constantly, just situations where we like are in a position where we could say something cool about ourselves and we like don't want to, but we still need to communicate the thing. So I use this tactic all the time in my life. Cause I just feel weird talking about myself. So
I agree.
That's cool, man. So Vision, any other things, in terms of like stuff that you would think about or focus on or stuff about early CEO?
Yeah. So I would say that, there's, I don't remember if you were definitely at the company. Then I don't know if you saw him speak, but Angus from Swipely came and spoke.
Oh yeah. Dude, love that guy.
He said this friend of his, I don't remember who it was, but back in for those of you who don't know, Angus Davis, so he started this company called Swipely, but before that, he was a co-founder of TellMe, which sold to Microsoft for like $800 million. The guy is like super brilliant. And he was talking about his past experience, and he said he met with someone who said to him, like, the winner between, in a battle between the alligator and the bear is determined by the terrain, right? And what he meant by that was, you can't be an alligator and a bear, right? You can't have all, you can't be Iron Man and Spider-Man and all these things. You can't dominate water and land, right? And I think there's a tendency for a CEO to want to make their thing perfect. And to make sure that when he or she looks at potential competitors, there's a feeling like, oh, they have that, then we need to have that. And so what ends up happening is, you say, okay, well, we're going to dominate land, but this is what we're going to do for water, and this is what we're going to do for air, and this is what we're going to do for space. And so you end up moving forward and having like almost like 5 sort of priorities and building a lot of things that if you were to give them a grade, you give them like a C, as opposed to focusing on just land. Like, forget it. I'm a bear, right? And I'm going to fucking dominate land, and I'm going to be really great at one thing. And when you do that, and so with SinglePlatform, what we decided early on was that we would only focus on bars first, right? Like, once we had the initial product launched, we said we'd only focus on bars first. And then after that, we'd go to delivery restaurants in top markets, and then delivery restaurants everywhere, then high-end restaurants, and then spas, then salons, then florists. And that took a long time for us to make this way through the category. But you could say, well, an investor would look at this and say, well, you only work with bars, but so we're not going to invest. But it was the opposite, because what we did is we created metrics that were so good, because we were so good to just selling the bars, that investors will assume, well, you did that well, then we're going to assume that you're going to do the next category well, the next category well. So I'd say, like, an ability to, going back to your question, ability to focus on one area and build one thing that delivers, that knockout punch, and not to be distracted by competition, instead of trying to do a lot of things at once. And I think it's shorter term goals are the best way to do that. You say to the whole company, this is the one thing that we're trying to prove or disprove this month, and then go after it, attack it with, every ounce of energy your organization has. Yeah.
And that's also such a great, like, mindset for just your own mental health. Like, when you approach like all your problems, like when you're trying to be an entrepreneur and start a business, it's like, there's never a shortage of crap to do. And when you don't know what to do or what to focus on, it's probably the most frustrating, annoying thing in the world.
Yes.
And just that like laser focus. Man, I love that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so easy to become distracted by all the different things and try to move. You're like, well, for instance, like if you're going to do, I met with a founder last week and he wants to build out his sales force. And I was like, okay, so what's your sales metrics? Like, he's like, well, I think they should sign, 40 a month. I forget what the number was. And, I was like, oh, how many did you sign when you were doing sales? And he said, well, I was dedicating like 20% of my time to it. So, I didn't multiply that times 5, but I multiplied it times 4. And I told him, I was like, I really highly suggest that you dedicate a certain period of time and just do 100% sales, just like you would as a salesperson. You're going to understand your model so much better. And that's not just for sales, but just, splitting your time between everything, which you always are as a CEO. And how do you comp people after that? So it's just I think the more you can just focus blocks of time, out to achieving a certain goal, the better you're going to be at it. Just like, you're such a great example of this. And I think, remember you posted a blog around like a blog post around New Year's about resolutions and everything. And every year you can do one or two things. You can write out the 50 things that you're going to change about your life in every category. And I've done that so many times. It's embarrassing.
Same.
Like, I'm going to do this and I'm never going to eat unhealthy again. And I'm going to write a letter to every person I love every day. And, it's such a beautiful, beautiful kind of vision, but you need to be realistic, and then when it's happening, you don't do that and you just don't do any of them. So instead you focus your efforts and you're like, I'm going to focus on this one aspect, this one area of my life, it's just such a more effective way about going about things. And, anyways, I'm rambling.
Totally. No, dude, it's good. So I had to figure out a way to get this story into this podcast about you riding a bike around country, because it's just so good. And there's probably, I don't know if there's anything the business people out there are going to learn from this. Hopefully though, but I really wanted to get this story in there because it's so cool. So can you tell us a little bit about you're 19 years old? Well, you were 19, right?
Yeah, I was 19 years old, and I was, living on a wood floor in Manhattan, and sleeping on a wood floor, and just completely broke. And I had a certain period of time where I felt like I could, people say like, "Oh my gosh, it was so risky of you to drop out of college at 19," and I don't get it. And the reason why I don't get it is because like you're 19 years old, you go back to college the following year. What's risky is when you have a big mortgage and a family and all these people that are depending on you. So I felt like at a younger age, I wanted to take some big swings. And I read Lance Armstrong's book. It's not about the bike. And I wanted to do a fundraiser for my dad, who passed away when I was 16 from lung cancer. And also a fundraiser for some educational, organization, nonprofit, because I had to drop out of school because I didn't have a lot of money. And so I decided, like, why not try to do something where I just, I learn a lot about myself by putting myself in a super challenging position and maybe hopefully inspire some people along the way. So I decided I was going to bike across the country, and bike for a month straight, and people would pledge a certain amount per state that I made it to within a 1 month period. So you donate $1 per state. I made it to 30 states. Then you donate, $30. So, with no training or anything, I jumped on a bicycle and, flew to Arizona and started there. And because I knew that, there's the Four Corners there. So I biked out to the Four Corners and
early momentum, baby.
Yeah. so ridiculous. I'll never forget that feeling. I got up the airplane and my bike, put together my bike, and I was like, oh my God, what did I just do?
What did your friends and family say when you said you're going to go bike around the country? And this is like Forrest Gump stuff.
Rachel Chong said this quote. I saw this. I'm saying a lot of quotes, but she said something like, she posted it today. She said, sorry, I really want to find this because it's such a freaking amazing quote.
Yeah, find it, man.
So she said, let's see, quote. There it is right there. So she said, set your life on fire and seek those who fan your fire. Right. So you ask, such a great quote. You ask, with what my friends and family did, like they've fanned my fire from such an early age when I was dropping out of college or doing that, or, you know, going out to sing a cappella or whatever it is, all these things I could be potentially very embarrassed by. And they just, you know, supported me. And, it's one of the things I'm the luckiest person in the world because of all those folks. And so they supported me along the way. And I didn't have a cell phone or anything. I biked about 100 miles a day. I had a trailer on the back of my bike that I pulled and would pitch a tent at the end of the day. You know, all the way up in these mountains or out in the Santa Cristo, Valley, like out in New Mexico. And then I'd knock on doors and ask to camp at people's backyards all the way until about, Florida. So I biked from Arizona to Florida and up to Maine in 30 days and raised, a lot of money, actually now almost $30,000 for American Association for Cancer Research and Reading is Fundamental. And I kept a journal along the way that I would write in. And, yeah, it was incredible. I just did something I didn't think I was going to be able to do and learned a ton about myself and met some amazing people along the way.
You still have that journal?
Yeah, I do. I look back at it and it's hysterical. Keeping a journal, I think is, you know, that's one of those things that's in my yearly list of like, I'm going to do that this year. Cause every time I read the journals from way back when, they're so great. And I unfortunately I don't keep a journal, but it's great to read that journal. It's, you know,
and somewhere along the way, the People's Court got involved.
Yeah. So it's a crazy story. So when I got to New York, I went upstairs and did a speech to 24/7 Media, who sponsored my bike trip, and came downstairs. An hour later, my bike was stolen. So here I am, this 19-year-old kid, and doing this fundraiser for, you know, in honor of my dad. And I'm on the side of the road, just like crying because my freaking bike just got stolen, and so defeating. So anyway, I took a train home and bought a new bike and finished up the trip. And then 2 years later, was walking down the street and a bike messenger pulled up on my bike. He had, and I knew it was my bike because it was, you know, it's a special bike, a beautiful specialized Allied bike, which cost a lot of money and had special rims on it because I was pulling a trailer, and it had my water bottle holder on it, my timer on it. It's like a track how many miles I was biking, and it had the plaque on it that said, bought at East Providence Cycle, East Providence, Rhode Island. So unless this guy went to East Providence, Rhode Island, bought the same bike and had everything customized, it was definitely my bike. So I tried to buy it back from him, and he said he bought it new, and we got in this argument, and a policeman came over and took the bike, and I had to file a small claim to try to get the bike back from him. And People's Court called, and they said, we read this story because it's a public file, and we'd like to bring you on People's Court so you can talk about your bike trip and get your bike back. So went on People's Court, and the way it works is they basically, you go on the show, and if I won, the person that I was suing doesn't have to pay me. People's Court does. So that's why they get all these sort of crazy folks to agree to be on the show. And you go on, and the set's like 12 feet tall. It's so ridiculous. And you use, this is Wiley Cerilli. Let's do that a few times. But anyway, at the end of the show, the judge comes back out, and she said, you know, Wiley, I know why you did this bike trip. I know you did it for your dad, but unfortunately, the police made a mistake and they auctioned off your bike, and we don't have it anymore. So I lost my bike again and was near tears again. And I don't cry this much, but it's two crying stories, one podcast.
It's a really sweet bike.
Yeah, obviously the bike meant a lot to me. So I did another fundraiser where we ran around the perimeter of Nantucket. It was a 50-mile beach run, and they invited me back on the show to promote it. And on live television, they rolled my bike out and presented it back to me. So I still have the bike. It's like locked up in the basement here now, and I don't ride it very often, but and I smile all the time whenever I see it because it's you know, a great story and just an incredible, insane experience. If you don't believe, you can just, you know, Google it and you'll see the episode. There's some episode on YouTube still up.
Oh, dude, that will be in the show notes. We will make that available for people that want to check it out.
Yeah,
dude, and so and it's actually. This is a good transition because I know now you've been focused a lot on raising money again for charities that you care about. And this to me is really awesome and interesting as well, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs who get started and they say, I'm going to build my business. and then I'm going to go and do something philanthropic. And, you know, to an extent, you have been able to do this. And I'd just love to hear just what the experience of that has been like, because that's what so many people say they want to go do.
Yeah. So, and I'd love to talk to you about that. First, I wanted to just circle back to the last point around like, that's why I did it. And I think you're a perfect example of this, of someone who appreciates their willingness to put themselves in an uncomfortable situation because they know that they're going to learn and grow a tremendous amount from that. You know, Matt Dumar is another perfect example of this. Matt Dumar had a product, a SinglePlatform. We met him and he had no product management experience. He was actually in finance, and he managed the whole product for SinglePlatform. He's on the executive team now. He's unbelievable. But, you know, I asked his sort of philosophy about his career, and he's like, I want to put myself in a position where I'm learning the most at all times. And he does. And it's just incredible. And whether it's a physical challenge like the one I did, or, you know, you're picking up and going to another country and learning another language, and like you have, the value of putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, even though you know you're going to lose. I think it's just such a valuable lesson. And I think it's like one of those things that motivates you to take bigger swings in life. You know, like, you know, you aim for the stars, and you're likely going to miss, but you know, you'll end up on the moon. And it's a great thing that I think of you all the time when I think about why I'm scared, to just take a chance on something. So anyways, I wanted to just say that.
I love that. That makes me so happy. Thank you for sharing that. Honestly, man, it's the key to success. The key to success is pushing your edge. Because truthfully, like, what holds us back from doing amazing things, I think more than anything, is ourselves. And when you dig deeper into that, it's like the beliefs that we have about what we can do. And truthfully, we can do whatever the frick we want, man. It's just whether we actually are going to have the stones to take the actions to go do it. And we can at least try, and we're always going to be better and happier that we tried. So that's really cool, man, that, you feel that way. And I love that at 19 years old, you had that foresight.
Yeah. I mean, I had some, you know, amazing people getting the fire, right, and supporting me at a young age, saying, you know, go for it. So you either look at things and you look at them as challenges, and you look at challenges or things or problems, and you look at them as bad things, or you look at them as opportunities. You know, like my dad, it's the last story I'll talk about this, but my dad, he was a real estate developer in Providence, Rhode Island, and a very successful one, and then lost all his money. But like, I remember him, he took one of the tallest buildings in Providence. It was somewhat like an eyesore in Providence when you drove down 95. It's just a brick building, all brick. And he he commissioned this artist from RISD to go and paint these, like fake bay windows on this brick building. And so when you drive by 95, you look at it, and they're beautiful windows. They're still there now. And you look at them and you think they're real windows, like they're beautiful bay windows. And he actually painted a little flower pot with all his kids' initials, and it was quite cool. But anyways, the reason why I bring that up is because I don't know, it taught me at a very young age that you know, like my dad saw windows in a windowless building, right? Whereas all these people saw a brick wall, right? Brick walls are, you know, brick walls. You're not getting through them. They see brick walls, and he sees windows. And I think if you're taught that at the younger age that you can learn that, the best, because you can appreciate all that life has to offer you. You know, it's like, it's amazing. And by
the way, did you know that's your Skype picture?
What?
The picture that you have as your Skype name is the windows on the Windows building. Yeah. So I'm looking at that right now.
Oh my God, it is. That's right. Yeah. You know, it's so funny. I used to have that as my Twitter image too. But yeah, so that's the building. So when you're driving by 95, you only saw the top like 4. You don't see down the bottom. It looks like paint's ripping up, because he had the artist make it so that it looks like someone's peeling like a piece of paper off the building. Yeah. So anyways, that's what it looks like. And I'm right next to the building, but from a few blocks away, it's, you know, you can't tell. It's so cool.
Man, that's awesome. So talk to me a little bit about the charity stuff.
Yeah. So I was saying before, like when I was 16 years old, my father was diagnosed with lung cancer, and he went from like a healthy 190 pounds to like a healthy 170 pounds to like a mere 90 when he passed away. And it was just a awful experience to go through as for anyone. And I didn't really talk about it very much. And I went through a destructive phase and everything, and really bottled it up. And I think being at that age, a lot of people, I have a lot of friends and everything that were supportive, but they didn't know exactly how to be supportive, because they don't know if you want to talk about it because it's depressing to talk about, or maybe it's not depressing to talk about, like what questions. And when you lose someone at a young age, you do want to talk about it. You feel very isolated. You feel like part of your childhood's like taken from you, and you all of a sudden are dealing with these realities of that a lot of people don't have to deal with till much, much later on in their life. And, you know, as a teenager, you're still trying to figure out like, who the frick am I, right? As a person, and, you know, you're going through puberty and you have college and girls, it's just like all these things that are swirling around, making it difficult for you to process what you're dealing with. And so, 6 years ago, I met some folks who wanted to start a camp for boys age 9 to 13 who have lost a parent or a sibling. And it was called Manitou Experience. And the reason why it's called Manitou is it's actually held at this camp called Camp Manitou that shuts down at the end of the summer, and they give us the camp for free. And it started with like 20 kids, 9 to 13 years old. And the idea was, let's bring them up to camp. 90% of the time, just playing games, like divide them into 4 teams, play like every game under the sun. It's a beautiful camp, you know, let them be kids. And then 10% of the time do like these sort of like group therapy sessions or exercises. And one of the exercises we have them do is like write a letter to your lost person. And these are kids that have dealt with all different things. Like they were 3 years old when their mother or father died. They don't remember, or their parents committed suicide. We have a kid whose father killed his mother and then shot himself. So like all these crazy stories. But basically it's an environment where they feel safe and they can share their feelings and be around people they can have this insanely unique bond with, and can really let their emotions out, you know, where if you don't, it can be really destructive. Like I said, it was for me. And so it provides an outlet for them to do that, and provides an outlet to just be a kid and get away from all this reality and just have fun and play games. And so we started the camp 6 years ago, and it's now 150 campers in Maine. We have a camp in LA. It's free for the kids to go to. I've been a camp counselor there every year, like in the bunks with the kids. We have 2 camp counselors per bunk, and it's just, it's amazing. You go around the first time around the circle, and these kids they'll say their story about what happened to them when it gets to a camp counselor. And then I take my story about how I lost my father, and then all my grandparents and aunts, and they all of a sudden look at you differently. They're like, oh wow, this isn't just a clinician here. This person is a clinician, but they've been through this, and they're X many years older than me. And we have a lot of camp counselors that are in their 20s, 30s, mostly younger. And then we have some that are 40, 50, mostly younger, so that we can have more of a bond between the campers and the camp counselors. And so now they have like a mentor they have all these mentors, you know, nurses and doctors and lawyers and teachers and people that are happy with their lives, that are there to support these kids that have gone through something similar to them. And so we found some real magic at this camp, and we're fundraising, and we want to open up 3 more camps over the next few years. So yeah, it's incredible. It's its own little startup, yeah, it's had this amazing impact on all these kids' lives. And it's the weeks that I volunteer are the time that I have the most fun out of the year by far. It's amazing going there.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. And I love how you kind of finished it up by phrasing it as like its own little startup, because I think a lot of, I don't know, man, like we were talking about your fundraising stuff beforehand. And I think a lot of people like, yeah, like I'll go and I'll be successful, and then I'll go do Philanthropy, and I'll be all soft and it'll be easy. And it's like, no, dude, you were like grinding to raise sponsorship money, and like it is a startup, and like, you know, you have the ability to impact all of these people directly, and it's just as competitive, if not more, as, you know, building a software company or whatever it is you do.
Yeah, it's challenging because you're, resource constraints again, and raising money is a little bit different. You're asking someone to give you money, and you're not going to not, with single platform, it was invest and hopefully you'll make millions. With this, it's obviously there is a great return with this, but it is a different approach. So it's difficult asking people for money and difficult getting that money. But the great thing is because we only have one paid person on staff who makes $30,000 and we've already raised that. So every penny now that we raise is going straight to sending out a kid to camp. So it's great to be able to say that, and a lot of nonprofits can't. Yeah, we're really lucky to have, another like incredible group of people, like this family there that's so passionate about it, that's now helping to tune this model so we can scale this thing out. And, there's 22,000 kids in New York City that lost a parent last year. So, and one of our challenges is just getting more kids to camp. Like, can we find more kids? There's obviously a lot more kids out there that can help. And we're trying to tune this model so we can ultimately scale it over the next few years. So.
I love it, man. It's such a worthy cause. And it, clearly has value for every single person that's involved. So dude, one of the name of the show is The Competitive Edge. And one of the questions I always like to ask at the end is, amongst the entrepreneurs, people that we talk to, what is one piece of advice that you would give somebody who is aspiring to some of the same things that you've achieved on how they might be able to get an edge in that journey?
For someone who wants to start their own company?
Yeah, let's just go ahead and say for somebody who wants to start their company. Let's say maybe they're in their 20s or they're working at a traditional corporate job. What's one thing that they could do, whether it's a ritual, a habit, maybe something that isn't necessarily obvious, but was very helpful for you in your journey?
So I would say that one of the most valuable things that you could have is, so when we are, as you know, we had a lot of office spaces in a very short period of time, but one of the office spaces we worked out of was, shared office space down in Soho. And I met like a really great group of CEOs there that were all sort of in the same phase, like, and weren't quite leaving their jobs, but there was some, they had like a desk rented out here and there, like Neil from Sail Through, Russ from SeatGeek, Waterfly folks were there, and like, didn't know at the time that all those businesses were going to grow up and be big businesses. But I think that, going out and talking with other people that are like sort of one step ahead of you, can be really helpful, but establishing like a network of different startup CEOs that you can go to, for advice and that you can go through this experience with was insanely helpful for me. And you don't have to move into an office space to get that. There's meetups that you can go to. It's not that I want to complain about the process that we went through, but it is a very lonely position to be in, to be a CEO of a company. Everyone's looking to you when things are bad, which things are mostly bad because things aren't mostly great. You work through Irving always says it's startup world strikes and gutters, mostly gutters, but the strikes come along just so often enough every month and a half or so to keep you in the game and everything. It's a grueling process that a lot of people can't understand how much your body and mind takes its toll on you. So having a network of some other people that are sort of going through that helps you normalize the process a bit so you don't feel so freaking crazy, So all those times, which by the way, like up until the day that we signed Google, like, oh, what an amazing day. Up until that day, I was scared out of my mind, that I made the wrong decision. 90% of the time. Right. And it's a tough thing to wear on your sleeve, especially at the same time when you're trying to sell this dream. And it's not, by the way, that I didn't think that this business was a good idea and wouldn't ultimately be successful. Like, Vince Lombardi said, we never lost a game. We just ran out of time. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with the startup world. Like, I didn't think that this idea single platform was a bad idea. I didn't think that we were going to lose because I knew it made sense. I was just afraid we were going to run out of time. Right. And so going through that process with some other CEOs that are going through that, is such a great support group to normalize your thoughts and just to talk through things with that you can't with the other people in your organization because you need to be focused on hitting whatever goals you're trying to hit. I would say is one of the most helpful things for someone about to be a CEO is to talk to people that are going through that process, and people that are one step ahead of you that are saying, you know what, like do it. And having that group of people around there supporting you that are going through it, feels like you're going to go through this thing together. And I mean, honestly, like Neil from Sail Through and Irv and Dane from Sumall and Andrew from Entreproid and Oren and Paul, these guys are in my CEO network and I'm in another CEO network group that we meet once a month in sort of like group therapy with, it's first round capital group. So Birchbox and Warby and Swipely and Agile Market and Colleen Isabel and Adaptly. Nikhil is awesome, dude. All these folks we meet on a regular basis and get great advice. And so that's what I would suggest.
That's great, man. And you know, it's funny, like, I haven't read the book, but I guess the guy, I think his name is Brad Horowitz, who from Andreessen Horowitz just wrote a book about like startups and the hard stuff. And I think like the most popular chapter, or the chapter that has resonated with the most amount of people that I've talked to who've read it, is the one about how the most difficult part is developing the emotional fitness to be a CEO of a startup. Because yeah, man. And like, and generally as humans, like we also suck at like evaluating the realistic part of a situation. It's like the classic, like you do 9 things awesome. You do one thing sucky. You focus on that one sucky thing. And I think like a peer group really alleviates that in an excellent way. So I'm happy you brought that up.
Yeah, it does. It definitely, it does. And, it just, the process weighs on your relationships with your friends, your family, whoever you're with. Like at the time with me and Allison, it weighed on us and it's, you need to remain positive, and it's a scary process to go through. But an amazing one. And, regardless whether you sell your company or not, you learn so much, going back to the original point. So, but yeah, I would definitely suggest that.
Wow, man. Great parting advice, Wiley. I mean, we've talked about everything from pre-sales to how you rode your bike across country and now the rewarding benefits of working with something that you really care about. And I just want to thank you for coming on the show today, man. It's been awesome. And I want to also make sure that if people who are listening to this want to get in touch with you, want to learn more about Manitou, they have an easy way to reach you or find out more information about you. So where would you say is the best place for people to get more information on you and Manitou?
Yeah. So there's a couple places I can actually give you a video if you can. I don't know if there's any way to put it.
I can totally put it up.
It's a video, but the video is probably the best thing that we have. It's manitouexperience.org, MANITOU experience.org. And then otherwise people can email me at wcerilli@gmail.com, CERILLI.
Awesome, dude.
We're looking for we've got sponsors like Tesla and all these great VCs sponsoring our events. And, so we're always looking for sponsors and volunteers for camp and auction items. So whatever people would like to help out with.
I love it, man. Thanks again for coming on, dude. You were awesome. Before we finish up with today's Mindshare, I just want to say thanks for listening to another episode of The Competitive Edge. If you enjoyed the ideas in this episode and want access to all the conversations, tactics, and mind shares we'll be sharing in the future, the best thing you can do is subscribe to The Competitive Edge on iTunes. And while you're there, if you felt like this show has made a positive impact on your day, it'd be great if you could leave us a review on iTunes as well. Now, I know we covered a lot in this episode, and there might be a few key ideas or tools that you want to remember. So we went ahead and compiled all of the notes, links, and even a full searchable transcript of this conversation for you on lifelonglearner.com. That's life-longlearner.com. I also want to give you the details on a cool contest I'm running right now at lifelonglearner.com/fun. By entering the contest, you'll have a chance to win everything from Amazon gift cards to a free month of having your very own dedicated virtual assistant to an opportunity to come and hang out with me and my buds for a few days where we'll teach you how to create your very own passive income stream. To enter this contest and learn more about everything we're giving away, head on over to lifelonglearner.com/fun. And now, let's dive into today's Mindshare. All right. Time for a Mindshare. And right now, I just want to shower some love on Wiley and the rest of the SinglePlatform team, especially my other mentor there, Kenny Herman, who has just been an amazing influence in my life. Both of these guys have been. And one of the questions that I get a lot from a lot of young people who read my blog or however they find me, or maybe played on my football team or something, is who should I work for? Like, what type of job should I go get? And a lot of people are super worried about like going and finding the best hot company to work for, or being passionate about the product, or, you know, being in the right industry. And to all those people, I just want to say, like, screw that. You should actually go find an amazing person to work for. And it's way more about the mentor that you find and the people that you're with than where you are and what you're doing. Like, truthfully, like, I want local businesses to succeed, but the fact that we were building software for local businesses wasn't the reason that I loved my experience there and that I love these guys that I worked with. It was because they were the type of people that made me better, that cared about me, and wanted to help me grow, not only as a professional and somebody contributing to our cumulative success at the company, but also as an individual. And what I tell people is, you want to optimize for people, and you want to find somebody who's interested in your personal and professional development. And these people don't come around every day. They're not easy. And there's a lot of different nuances to go into finding these people. But that's the formula. You want to find somebody who's going to be just as interested in your numbers in the office as they are, you know, how you're feeling and how your weekend did. And, you know, I just had this type of mentorship at the company, and a mentorship where they were celebrating my wins and they were trying to always lift me up, instead of, you know, some of the other stories that I hear where people get competitive, even amongst their underlings. I mean, that just sounds crazy to me. So, you know, just think about, like, if you're thinking about a job change, if you're a young person, go optimize for the people. Go find somebody that is the best at what you want to get good at and is willing to teach you and is a good person and cares about your success. Try to gauge that however you can. Try to ask around, figure out from other people that know that person, and go work for them. And, you know, whether we're talking about making car parts, selling to local businesses, or the next sexy software app that everybody wants to talk about, I think the most important thing is the people that you're with, people that you're in the foxholes with. So that's today's Mindshare. I want to give a special shout out to everyone at SinglePlatform. Wiley and Kenny, I love you guys. And I'm really grateful that you came on to the show today, Wiley, and shared all that awesome information with us.